There was a man who I call the 20th century abolitionist. His name was Leo Tolstoy. There were many others part of the 1900s who came after the 1800s in history. Again, figures that are often not talked about in history, especially very extreme views or views that go against the status quo. They're not really extreme when you break them down, they start to become common sense, but you have to be able to understand, where did these individuals come from? Why did they think what they thought? And the abolitionists, well, what they did is they ended slavery in the 1800s. The abolitionists after that, they recognized, oh wait, there might be slavery in other forms, not limited to simply chattel slavery. That's why today I call myself a modern abolitionist, because I recognize there's a slavery happening today. In case you don't think that's the case, I'm going to put some questions on the screen for you, or I encourage that you go to theliberator.us, which is the website where you can learn a lot more about this type of material. I do all of this completely for free and educational. Now, who is this individual I'm talking about from the 20th century? His name is Leo Tolstoy, somebody you might be familiar with because he's literally known as one of the most influential writers, greatest authors of all time. And this comes from the year 1900, a writing that he has called The Slavery of Our Times, and it is still relevant to the times we have now in the 21st century. So let's just take a reading through this excerpt because I think this is very telling. Slavery results from laws. Laws are made by governments, and therefore people can only be freed from slavery by the abolition of governments. But how can governments be abolished? All attempts to get rid of governments by violence have hitherto, always and everywhere, resulted only in this: that in place of the deposed governments, new ones established themselves, often more cruel than those they replaced. Not to mention, past attempts to abolish governments by violence, according to the socialist theory, the coming abolition of the rule of the capitalist, that is, the communalization of the means of production and the new economic order of society, is also to be carried out by a fresh organization of violence and will have to be maintained by the same means. So that attempts to abolish violence by violence neither have in the past nor evidently can in the future emancipate people from violence nor consequently from slavery. It cannot be otherwise. Apart from outbursts of revenge or anger, violence is used only in order to compel some people against their will to do the will of others. But the necessity to do what other people wish against your own will is slavery, and therefore, as long as any violence designed to compel some people to do the will of others exists, there will be slavery. All the attempts to abolish slavery by violence are like extinguishing fire with fire, stopping water with water, or filling up one hole by digging another. People must feel that their participation in the criminal activity of governments, whether by giving part of their work in the form of money or by direct participation in military service, is not, as is generally supposed, an indifferent action, but, besides being harmful to oneself and to one's brothers, is a participation in the crimes unceasingly committed by all governments in a preparation for new crimes, which governments are always preparing by maintaining disciplined armies. The age for the veneration of governments, notwithstanding all the hypnotic influence they employ to maintain their position, is more and more passing away, and it is time for people to understand that governments not only are not necessary, but are harmful and most highly immoral institutions in which a self-respecting, honest man cannot and must not take part, and the advantages of which he cannot and should not enjoy. And as soon as people clearly understand that, they will naturally cease to take part in such deeds. That is, cease to give the governments soldiers and money. And as soon as a majority of people ceases to do this, the fraud which enslaves people will be abolished. Only in this way can people be freed from slavery, and in order not to do the evil which produces misery for himself and for his brothers, he should, first of all, neither willingly nor under compulsion take any part in governmental activity, and should therefore be neither a soldier, nor field marshal, nor minister of state, nor a tax collector, nor a witness, nor an alderman, nor a juryman, nor a governor, nor a member of parliament, nor in fact hold any office connected with violence. That is one thing. Secondly, such a man should not voluntarily pay taxes to governments either directly or indirectly, nor should he accept money collected by taxes either as salary or as pension or as reward. Nor should he make use of governmental institutions supported by taxes collected by violence from the people. That is the second thing. Thirdly, a man who desires not to promote his own well-being alone, but to better the position of people in general, should not appeal to governmental violence for the protection of his own possessions in land or in other things, nor to defend him and his near ones, but should only possess land and all products of his own or other people's toil insofar as others do not claim them from him. And this is sort of like the golden rule in simply living in a voluntary consensual world, which is a world that is totally possible. You can still have leaders but without authority. When he talks about how nobody should participate in the system at all or give it any credence, it's because when you do participate in the system, you are legitimizing the system. You are legitimizing that belief in authority, statism, this root cause that creates all government. So if somebody says they want to limit government or lower government, you can't really do that because it's always going to grow back, being that you're still legitimizing it. Same thing with slavery. The abolitionists could have said, well, let's just make slavery better, but then they're still allowing slavery. Instead, they said, no, slavery is wrong, end it now. And in fact, the abolitionists did not participate in politics because they saw writing down on a piece of paper that slavery is wrong is not what's going to make it actually wrong. What's going to make it wrong is changing hearts and minds of individuals. And that's what they did. They called it moral suasion. And that's why Tolstoy here is not saying let's use violence, let's not use politics, let's just educate people. And that's the only thing we should do. Now, education, there's a lot of things you can do for education, and it's not just one thing. See, people in politics, it's just vote, elect, change the law. It's actually very limited compared to the other options, which often just get completely left out of the picture. And if you're curious about what those options are and why they're better, I encourage you to learn more about this, because you don't want to be legitimizing an evil in thinking that it's not evil and that it's okay to put someone maybe who's better in office and to maybe create a better system by passing this law or that law. You may not see what you're actually doing and why so many people have tried to do that throughout history but always failed. And this is the key if we want to evolve the human destiny, is realizing why did we keep failing and how can we prevent that so we can actually create the world that we actually desire after so many thousands of years. And again, the abolitionist had to end a practice done for thousands of years, slavery. It's no different now, being that we're dealing with the slavery from government, which Lysander Spooner, an abolitionist from the 19th century, called political slavery. Read about this at theliberator.us, get involved, send us your article, I'll turn it into a video for you. You can network, you can share your events, activism, your own experience. Please do. Thank you very much for watching.